So for a long time, alcohol and gasoline were neck and neck all over the United States. And basically what you did is if you were in the city, you tanked up on gasoline because it was cheap and Rockefeller was throwing it away. And when you wanted to come back home from the countryside, you stopped by a farm, you tanked up on alcohol, you made some changes with the car, and then you drove home. So the Model A was made to do this. It was a dual fuel vehicle right from the start. Henry Ford intended it that way. So anybody here ever have a Model A? Anybody here? Usually there's somebody. You had one, huh? So can you tell me about the digital distributor that Model A's have?
No.
Well,
a bigger engine in it.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, the Model A's had a digital distributor. It took all 5 digits to operate it, you know. So a distributor is what tells when the spark should fire in your engine. And as you go faster, you want the spark to fire earlier. And so in modern cars, of course, well, modern cars prior to fuel injection, there was an automatic device, fairly complex device, a distributor with centrifugal weights and vacuum advance and all this stuff that would control when the spark would fire. But back then you listened to the engine yourself and you adjusted it by hand. Now with alcohol, because it's 106 octane, you would start the spark much earlier than you would with gasoline. It was a much slower burning fuel and would burn more completely. So you'd back up the timing a little bit by just pulling a lever on the steering column. And alcohol, which is different than gasoline, gasoline is a hydrocarbon, which means it has hydrogen and carbon. Alcohol is an oxygenated hydrocarbon, so it's got all 3, hydrogen, carbon, and oxygen. So it needs less air, less oxygen from the air to burn. So you'd have to adjust the amount of air and fuel going into the engine. In those days, and up until not too long ago, that was done with a carburetor. So the Model A had a rod that went right from the dashboard, a little knob on the dash, went all the way to the carburetor, and you could actually adjust how much fuel and air just right there from the dash, you know, and that was how you went back and forth between alcohol or gasoline depending on what was available. So as I'll be telling you a little bit later, the ability to dual fuel a vehicle is now currently available and had, you know, but in the intervening period you kind of had to be on one or the other. You know, Henry Ford had a lot of compatriots in the alcohol movement, and let's see, this Alexander Graham Bell was a big fan of alcohol fuel. He wrote this in 1922. The world's consumption of fuel has become so enormous as to show that our present supplies cannot possibly last for many generations more. As an alternative, he suggested alcohol, a beautifully clean and efficient fuel, which can be produced from vegetable matter of almost any kind. The waste products from our cities are all available, and even the garbage from our farms. So the whole issue of non-renewability of oil has been clear early on in this country, and people like Ford and Bell said it was a really poor idea to plan to use a fuel that would run out. Ford also used to say that if we can't be the farmer's customer, how can he be ours? And that predates Paul Hawken and the Ecology of Commerce by about 60 years, you know, but it's the same concept, is that we need to patronize each other and not export, you know, our local capital out to people who are not part of our community. And Ford tried to be responsible that way.